Welcome to Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn, joined as always as Northumberland Peterborough South MPP David Piccini. David, welcome to another edition. It's been another busy week with updates coming from the provincial government on COVID-19. I just thought I'd start this interview this week a little different. Ask you how you're doing, how you're feeling, and how things are going with yourself during this time.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate the question. Things are going quite well. Personally, things in the office are going really well. Just trying to obviously keep up to date with all of the requests from individuals, just nearing our final biggest two, arguably, town halls coming up with our municipalities, Port Hope and Cobourg. Those are going to be the biggest, I would imagine, but they've been so successful to date. Had some phenomenal ideas, just coming off the back of two with Crammy and Illinois Calderman, wrapping up our sector-specific consultations to feed into jobs and recovery. Obviously, the government's been working around the clock to make sure Ontarians have the supports that they need through COVID-19. And I think really starting to have a much clearer picture of the path forward. And that's thanks to people in our community and our finance committee and working as a government with an eye to a strong recovery.
So, David, how do you keep going during this time? I know you're working long hours from the time the sun comes up to the time to well after the sun goes down. So what keeps you motivated? What keeps you get going every day to continue on down this path?
Well, I would say as I came to the end of the day yesterday, leaving the legislature and heading home, there's just a crack of sunlight left, and I really wanted to get outside. But I had Illinois Calderman town hall last night with Alderville First Nation as well. And, I'm not going to lie, it was the 14th, 15th hour of the day of working, but getting on that Zoom and talking to people and having some really good ideas. And what was a really focused, small discussion, but a really productive one, it just got me excited and got me going. And I feel, when you enjoy what you do, you've never really worked a day in your life. So I fundamentally enjoy this. And we had some phenomenal ideas. A gentleman last night, Bill, talked about a better integrated network for at-risk seniors with masks. And thanks to a mask donation I've received, I'll be picking up today, actually, we'll be able to get some masks in the hands of our vulnerable seniors who are, wondering, can I go out now? And who might otherwise not have masks to do so. So, these sorts of ideas that we're able to toss around, really cool local infrastructure ideas last night as well, are going to really help inform our recovery plan.
One thing, David, that you've done is try to get hands-on during this time. I know that you've had, as you stated, your town hall meetings that you've been having over the last month and a half with specific municipalities within your riding, along with the First Nations communities. You also had business specific consultations, and I think they're just about ready to sector specific. I think that's just about ready to wrap up, as well as you sat on the Standing Committee of Finance and Economic Affairs, where they've been long meetings with lots of great ideas. During this time, and I think we've talked about this before, that we've really seen the ingenuity of people in this community, and all the communities, not just yours, but all of Ontario, that is coming to the forefront of how great ideas are coming from this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yesterday, we were getting off the phone. I was working with Premier's office and a local manufacturer on masks, discussing the need for a Made in Ontario solution. We've obviously worked hard to compile that central portal, ontario.ca/PPE, which compiles a list of all suppliers and I'm proud to say points out and delineates those Made in Ontario solutions. So, throughout all of this, what's the aha moment, Mark, I would say is through our local sector specific consultations. And then through the 12-hour days, we're having on Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs. And for everyone out there that's wondering, Finance Committee is combing through every major sector in Ontario's economy. For example, tourism and hospitality, we had 174 deputants come to speak to Standing Committee. That was a record in this province's history. So working with the opposition, some 9-hour subcommittee meetings, jostling how we're going to do this. We finally agreed, and being able to hear that from folks around Ontario, but also locally, you're starting to see, there's some common recommendations with respect to HST. There are some common recommendations with respect to stimulus spending on infrastructure. So there are some really common threads emerging here, and from my perspective, it's going to put us in a good position in Northumberland, Peterborough South, as I advocate to bring continued investments into our riding.
David, you talked about the PPE supply list that in your previous answer. Now, can anybody go and access that list that is in need of that are operating a business and are starting to look to reopen, but they don't know where to go for supplies?
Yes, Mark, that's correct. And why I say that's important is because I have gotten a glimpse into the procurement process and have seen the disruptive global supply chains as a result of COVID-19. And Premier Ford and our government have been working tirelessly to ensure a streamline of supply. You'll recall early on, there was a slight worry that within our healthcare professions, I got a call from Northumberland paramedics about, potentially running low, not immediate, but within the next week or two. And that's for them, and rightly so, raises the alarm bells. So we've been working around the clock to make sure people have the supplies that they need. It's been working. Our central warehouse in the GTA, which then supplies to each major region and all healthcare partners, has a 24-hour turnaround, and we are not running low on supplies. We have a steady stream of 3M N95 masks, and then all of the other level 1, 2, 3 masks, gowns, hand sanitizers, etc. That's occurred. Premier has brought in a former executive from Canadian Tire to help with that process. And I think that's really, the benefits of this government, of a premier that's worked in business, leveraging both the bureaucracy, but also private sector support, working together to procure the supplies we need. We're in a good position in Ontario. And why I say to Ontarians, look to that. We've vetted exhaustively between the fly-by-nighters, the people who come together, and let's say you and I, Mark, wanted to make a buck and we decide let's do PPE, versus those who are experienced, who understand the suppliers, who understand where the products are being made, and who are trusted and vetted by the government. So on that website, and that's not to say that there haven't been groups that have come together in Ontario and manufacturers who are pivoting. We've listed it all there. I would highly encourage anyone looking to procure PPE to go and visit that website. Again, it's ontario.ca/PPE.
David, give us an update on where we currently sit with the House sitting, the legislature sitting. I know that at some point they'd be coming up on a summer break. Where are we at that? Are we still going ahead with that, or what will happen next with the legislature?
Well, I'm proud to say that yesterday we had a historic vote in the Ontario legislature. We voted similarly to how they do it in the UK, where you walk in either lobby and the yeas, the nays, and you walk in and you cast your ballot. And I'm proud that we, and full credit to the opposition, we've worked together to ensure that the core tenet of our democracy, which is, you elect your local member to go and advocate for you and to work on policies in the middle of a global pandemic. I don't think it's time to take a break or to suspend the legislature. I'm proud that in Ontario, we were the first to revise our fiscal forecasting, our financing. We introduced the action plan. We've been forthright with Ontarians on our numbers, and we haven't decided to close the doors as we've seen federally. Here in Ontario, we're working hard for the people of this province, and we have to think outside the box. If we're challenging businesses, we're challenging Ontarians to pivot, to respond to COVID-19. We owe it to the people we represent to do the same and to lead by example. So we're going in every day. We're talking about farm trespassing bill yesterday, Minister Hardeman. This was a big piece brought to me by the NFA, Northumberland Federation of Agriculture, talking with a number of farmers, about the challenging, on trespassing and the concerns that our local farmers had over this. And from my perspective, we can't just stop. So I'm proud that we're back in the legislature debating. We haven't stopped, and we're going through till August. We'll take a short 2 to 3 week hiatus to really focus in. By then, we'll have a much better picture on finance committee. I'm finance committee is going to go right through, so I'll still be in Toronto, and committees will still be meeting. But then we'll resume again in September. So we take just a 2 to 3 week break. It'll give folks a chance to get back in their constituency, really talk about the recovery and additional measures, and then we'll probably see a budget into the fall.
You brought up farmers, David. Let's talk about the farmers and what you're hearing from them, because it seems to be the quiet, the silent group during COVID-19, where we're not hearing a lot from them, but they're just head down, keeping doing their work as they normally would every day.
Well, Mark, and that's an important thing you raise. And for everyone out there watching, I would say, don't be distracted solely by the loud voices, keyboard warriors, as I call them on Facebook. We have a wide and vast riding, areas where there's struggle to get internet connectivity, broadband, another file we can talk about. But I try and get out there, was out visiting some RV campgrounds and out speaking to farmers, and they're working. They're up at the crack of dawn. They're not on there, out there on Facebook complaining. They're just head down, getting their work done. And it's important from my perspective that their voice isn't lost. So we have a multitude of voices, different perspectives to feed into the dialogue and into our diverse dialogue that occurs at Queen's Park. And for our farmers, there's been a loss in quota. There's been a real challenge with loss in market share due to some of recent federal trade deals. There's been, they've been talking agri-stability, risk management program. There's been a very real concern over the depopulation of flocks, of livestock, etc. We're hopefully avoiding that and working really hard. There's been the challenge with the processing facilities, getting the meat to the processors. So Minister Hardeman's responded. We've looked at our processors rather than sending in food inspectors and rather than shutting them down, we're working with them, and we've partnered with the feds to say, hey, if you need access to additional machinery, equipment to upgrade your facility to meet our very high standards in Ontario, you can do that, and we're going to support you in doing that. And I'm pleased to say that of the 13 flagged, Mark, 12 have worked with the government to make those investments to continue to improve the processing facilities. And, finally, I would say that this is our backbone to rural Ontario and our agriculture community. And it's important that we support them. And so everyone watching, consider shopping local, consider going to your local farmers market, looking at farm gates, looking at supporting your local abattoirs, your local farmers, and please ask them how they're doing. They're not often asked. Reach out, understand our agriculture community, and support them.
We're up on our first break, David. When we come back, we'll talk about the extension of the emergency order to June 30th that just came out. We'll talk about Digital Main Street and the broadband announcement that was made a couple of weeks ago. You're watching Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Update from the Hill. I'm Mark Rockburn. Joining me as always is Northumberland Peterborough South MPP David Piccini. And David, I thought we'd quickly touch on, maybe not quickly, depending how quick how we talk about this, the emergency order on the day of this taping, which is June 17th, has been extended to June 30th. Talk about the reasoning why behind this.
Yeah, it's important that we have the tools to be able to pivot and respond as a government quickly. And while I know many are seeing a gradual decline in the numbers, which is a good thing, and that's thankful to Ontarians and thankful to the immense sacrifice they're making, it's important we have the tools to be able to pivot to respond to needs in long-term care, healthcare, to be able to respond to localized needs in pockets of Ontario. So what I would say for many, because Mark, this is a common misunderstanding, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to address this. It doesn't mean, it doesn't mean anything other than we have the tools at our disposal should we need to use it. So for folks out there wondering, do I need to stay locked at home? No, that's not the answer here. Does that affect our gradual reopening of the economy? No. That we are doing well in Ontario relative to our major comparators, which aren't really provinces other than maybe BC and Quebec. We compare ourselves to, we'd be the fifth largest state were we in the United States. We have a major international hub, not only for Canadians, but for folks south of the border in Pearson. And we're a major trader in Ontario. We're the largest trading partner of almost every major United States state. And so compared to those comparators, our numbers are far better. Our response has been far better. And that's, again, thanks to the discipline and support and immense sacrifice from Ontarians. So, we've given ourselves that ability. And I think, again, a thank you to Ontarians for what they're doing.
David, you talked quickly, touch briefly on the numbers, COVID-19 numbers. Have we finally crossed that threshold, I guess, or that number where we're starting to slowly see the decline of COVID-19 in the province of Ontario? I know everybody waits for that number that starts to slowly go down, and we're now 4 days in a row, I do believe, the day of this taping, of numbers under 200.
Yes, and that's been huge for this province, and it is good news, and that's why you're seeing a continued push to reopen this economy in our province. And it's been strong numbers because Ontarians understand the importance of coming together on this and of exercising physical distancing terms. I think most of us really weren't end of our tongue going into COVID-19. But we're all very familiar with now, and I think that as we go forward into to continue to go forward into the 2000s here, these sorts of global pandemics are going to be a reality, and how we respond will be critical. But are we over this? Are we through the woods on this, Mark? No, but I think we are certainly seeing a strong light at the end of the tunnel here. And we are doing a remarkable job, all Ontarians, to battle and to combat COVID-19, the invisible enemy.
With that battle, David, it was a week of some really great news for people that have been waiting for a long time, for people to go see their grandparents, for people to finally meet a grandchild that might have been born in COVID that they haven't been able to see. It was the expansion of social circles, weddings, funerals expanded to 50, family visits to long-term home once again, retirement homes, other residential care. It was a week of good news where people can finally go see the loved ones that they've missed over the last 60 some days.
Yes, and I know many have been, we've heard from our epidemiologists, from our physicians, from our public health experts on, that our seniors, our elderly are at much higher risk. And so I know many grandparents have just joined our Zoom town hall saying, when can I hug my grandchild again? And that's been, a common question. And it's good that we've seen such strong numbers, and thanks to those responsible approach and the discipline and sacrifices families have made, Ontario are seeing a massive drop in numbers. Again, as you mentioned, below 200 for a number of consecutive days now. So that's been big, and the social circles expanding. I mean, people shouldn't let their guards down, but understand who you're close with. The social circles we're talking about, understand that, have a comfort in that they're taking the responsible approach, I should say, as are you, and continue to go about, your day-to-day lives and enjoy spending time with loved ones. I know, I've for the first time had a barbecue with our broader family, not incredibly big, just my aunt, my parents, girlfriend, sister, and it was just nice to be able to see the family outside, have a nice barbecue. And I know for many, this has been what they've been waiting for quite some time.
David, Part of that getting out, getting the economy rolling is the fact that businesses are looking for some help as to how they can get going once again, seeing the doors have been shut. They're trying to learn the new norm of the way to do business. And a program that was announced by your government recently is the Digital Main Street program. Talk to us about how the business communities in your riding can work and get involved in the Digital Main Street.
Yeah, this is huge. I mean, one of the big things we've been talking about is digital presence and our digital response to COVID-19, and it's shown that really many either through there's two things: it's getting connected online, but it's also having the backbone infrastructure with broadband to do that. So on both fronts, I mean, we came out with a significant broadband announcement, leveraging up to $500 million applications into July. I'm working with local providers to get shovels in the ground. And, we're having discussions with our Eastern region partners on continued larger investments into broadband. But, we've also called on the feds. Ontario stepped up to the plate again, as I said, up to $500 million investment. We're calling on them of the 1.7 billion that the feds have committed across Canada, $0 have flown. So we've called on them to front end that investment, if not now, then when, because we really need it now. But the Digital Main Street, again, another partnership we're working on with the feds.
David,
And that's,
if I could just jump in so we don't get too mixed up here and get too far along. Question on the broadband announcement: is this new money that is being announced by your government, or is it just announcement of money once again from when we were all out in Roseneath in front of Robin's General Store?
that's a good question. No, it's new money. It's a part of a broader original announcement we made, but this is new money with the ICON program that Minister Scott announced. So that's a good question. The Digital Main Street, partnering with the feds, $57 million investment to support. It's estimated to 22,900 small businesses and create jobs for over 1,400 students to help businesses scale up and grow their online presence. And I know our chambers are doing a phenomenal job locally supporting businesses get that potential. And we really in rural Ontario need a critical mass and can come together and do that on common platforms. So this was an important step for the government to take, and I support it as a rural Ontario MPP wholeheartedly.
Is this similar to the project, David, that Port Hope got involved in last year, or is it an expansion to that? Because I think Cobourg tried to get involved a little bit as well, but I don't think they went as deep as Port Hope did.
Yes, Mark, it is good flag. It's Digital Main Street has been a big program with the government of Ontario and supporting those downtown mom and pop shops, businesses on the downtown core, helping them digitize their business. And, I think being able to grow that with an additional investment here in Ontario is going to be critical for our small businesses. And I do think that, as we go forward in the next few months, I'd like to see, and we'll be working with our small businesses to grow that online presence to attract both front end, back end, those who come into your store, but the back end, those in Toronto who may come out in July or August, but want to continue ordering from you through year round. Let's grow that. Let's get that going, that back end of the business. And I think this is fantastic.
So how can businesses get involved, David, or take advantage of this program?
Well, they can visit, I would first say, just visit my website, davidpiccinimpp.ca, and on our news feed there, there's a latest article on Digital Main Street. There's a link to the Digital Main Street platform. You can click and apply and go through the online process on my website. I'll also share it on Facebook and social media.
Thank you for that. Your file, part of your file at Queen's Park is dealing with post-secondary education. For those kids that are looking to go to school in the fall, can you give us an update as to where we are at right now? I know an announcement was made last week about graduating students who couldn't finish the year off, that you're going to open up the university so they can finish those degrees off for colleges. Where are we at for the fall students?
Yeah, that's a good question. So last week we started, I think walking before we run is critical on taking lessons learned. So we, over the summer, are going to graduate over 10,000 academically stranded students. And what does academically stranded mean? That means that those, let's say, nursing students who if but finishing the practicum, would be on the front lines right now, or a welder, who can't weld in their basement or in their room, getting those finishing hours to be able to graduate. That's been critical. Trucking, that's another big one. We have a backlog, so that we can continue our supply chains across this country. So getting to support them, we reached out, I should say, and held intensive roundtables with our colleges, our universities, our private career colleges, our Indigenous institutes. And so it's approximately 10,000 students around the province of Ontario. It doesn't grow in excess of any more than potentially 1,000 students or fewer, couple hundred per any given campus. And we're able to maintain physical distancing. We're taking lessons learned, looking to how back in class learning looks on a university college campus. And these are important lessons we're going to take over the summer, but this is an eye to resuming class in the fall. Whether it's going to be a full traditional resumption, it's unlikely. It'll be likely a blended model and or expanding the days. I mean, these are some of the things we're talking about.
David, thanks very much. Your time's up. It goes quick. Thanks very much. Have a great week.
Thanks very much for having me today, Mark. Have a great week.
You've been watching Queen's Park Report. I'm Mark Rockburn. We'll see you in 1 week's time.